The growing Umayyad Caliphate and Charles Martel's Frankish army engaged in a pivotal battle at the Battle of Tours in 732 AD. Martel and his hardened soldiers were the last line of defense as the Umayyads advanced farther into Western Europe. In addition to halting Islamic expansion, this crucial encounter influenced the course of medieval Europe and earned Martel the nickname the Hammer. The second caliphate to be established following the passing of the Islamic prophet Muhammad was the Umayyad Caliphate, or Umayyad Empire. At the time of the Battle of Tours, the Umayyad Caliphate was arguably the most powerful military force in the world. During the Umayyads' rule, the caliphate saw its greatest expansion. Through the late 7th century, Muslim armies advanced west across North Africa and east across Persia. In addition to capturing most of the Byzantine Empire, including parts of Syria, Armenia, and North Africa, it had vanquished and assimilated the Sasanian Empire. Now, the Umayyad Empire encompassed a wide range of peoples and occupied a vast territory. For the majority of his tenure as commander-in-chief of the Franks, Charles Martel's Frankish realm was the most powerful military force in Western Europe. It included the majority of Western Germany, Luxembourg, Belgium, the Netherlands, and North and Eastern France. Since the fall of Rome, the Frankish realm had started to move closer to becoming Western Europe's first true imperial power, but it had to contend with outside forces like the Saxons, the French, and other adversaries like the Bas Aquitanian, who were led by Odo the Great. In 719, the Umayyad troops ruled over a region in southern France called Ceomania under the leadership of Al-Sam ibn Malik Alani, the governor-general of Al-Andalis. In 720, Al-Sam established his capital at Narbonne in southern France. Aruna was to be the name of this city. The humans quickly defeated the mostly unresisting cities that were still under the control of their Visigothic counts after securing the port of Narbonne. At the Battle of Taux, nearby, the campaign into Aquitaine experienced a brief setback. The siege was broken by Duke Odo the Great, who caught Al-Sam and Malik's forces off guard. Al-Sam ibn Malik suffered a fatal wound. As Moorish forces, soundly based in Narbonne and easily resupplied by sea, struck eastward in 720 and advanced as far as Autun and Burgundy, central France, in 725. This defeat did not stop incursions into Old Roman Gaul. In 730, Odo allied himself with a Yad governor known to the Franks as a man after being threatened by both the Yads in the south and the Franks in the north. Manua married Odo's daughter Lampi to cement the alliance, and Moorish raids across the Pyrenees stopped along Odo's southern border. But the following year, Manua cut ties with his Arab masters and assassinated the Bishop of Urkel. After sending an expedition to put an end to his uprising, Abbot al-Ramon turned his focus on Usman's ally. The Muslims then stormed into Bordeaux and pillaged it, decisively defeating Odo after he gathered his army there. Then, Abd al-Rahman raided deep into Frankish territory. Odo, who was reorganizing his army despite the significant losses, alerted Charles Martel, the ruler of Frankish lands, to the danger that was approaching his realm's heartland, and asked the Franks for help. Odo consented to submit to Frankish authority, and Charles Martin granted this. The heads seem to have been unaware of the Franks' actual power. None of the Germanic tribes, including the Franks, were of much concern to the Umayyad forces. The Franks didn't scout north for possible enemies because, given his increasing dominance over a large portion of Europe, they would have undoubtedly seen Charles Martel as a formidable opponent. By 732, the Umayyad advance force had easily routed all opposition in that region of Gaul and was moving north toward the Lire River. While the main body of the invading army advanced more slowly, several raiding parties had broken off. Due to the army's need to survive while advancing, the Umayyad postponed their campaign until the end of the year. They were required to wait until the wheat crop in the region was ready. It was stored until a respectable portion of it was finished. Southern Gaul was later devastated by the invading force. The wealth of the Abbey of St. Martin of Tours, the most revered and prestigious shrine in Western Europe at the time, could have been a contributing factor. In an attempt to surprise the Muslims, Australia's mayor of the palace, Charles Martel, gathered his army and marched south, avoiding the ancient Roman roads. The discovery of a sizable force directly in their path to Tours caught the invading Muslim forces off guard. Charles got the complete surprise he wanted. Then, instead of attacking, he started fighting in a defensive flanking position. Arab sources claim that to lessen or disperse Muslim cavalry charges, the Franks drew up in a large square with hills and trees in front of them. There were minor skirmishes between the two armies for 7 days. The yards awaited the arrival of their maximum power. Even though Abd al-Rahman was a seasoned leader, he had been outwitted. He had given Charles the freedom to choose the battleground and concentrate his forces. Furthermore, Charles had concealed his actual army size behind the forest and trees, making it impossible for the yards to estimate its size. His best chance of winning was Charles's infantry. Most of them had fought alongside him for years, some dating back to 717, and were seasoned and battle-hardened. He had militias in addition to his army, but they had not been used for anything other than harassing the Muslim army and gathering food. Abd al-Rahman felt he had to sack Tours, which meant he had to battle through the Frankish army on the hill in front of him, even though neither side wanted to attack. Since the Battle of 10 years ago, Charles had been preparing for this encounter. He had tough, battle-hardened infantrymen who implicitly believed in him, even though he was supposedly outnumbered and lacked heavy cavalry. To adequately train and maintain a full-size army primarily made up of professional infantry, Charles even obtained a sizable loan from the Pope, after persuading him of the looming crisis during the Dark Ages, when permanent armies had not yet been established in Europe. The Arab intelligence failure also included their complete ignorance of the strength of his forces. After 10 years of training, he was well aware of the Caliphate's advantages and disadvantages, but he also knew that they did not know the Franks. Since winter was coming, Abd al-Rahman did not want to wait any longer, so the battle finally started on the 7th day. Abd al-Rahman ordered his cavalry to charge at the Franks because he believed they were tactically superior. Charles's choice to remain in the hills was crucial because it made the Umayyad cavalry charge through trees and uphill, which reduced their effectiveness. They formed a flank formation, and because Charles had secured the high ground, they fared better against a cavalry charge than might be predicted. Any cavalry charges were further hindered by the trees in front of him. Although Arab sources claim that the Arab cavalry repeatedly entered the Frankish square, the well-behaved Frankish soldiers resisted the attacks. The Franks did not break despite this. At the time, it was believed that infantry could not withstand a strong cavalry attack, but the skilled Frankish soldiers managed to do just that. There would have been no force left to defend Western Europe if Charles had failed. The Umayyad Caliphate was vanquished by the end of the conflict. The Umayyad Caliphate suffered up to 12,000 casualties, while the Franks suffered about 1,000. In terms of strategy and tactics, Charles most likely made the best choice possible by waiting until his adversaries least expected him to step in and then moving stealthily to surprise them at a battlefield of his choosing. He and his men were likely unaware of how serious the battle they had fought was. A Muslim raid that might have taken over Gaul, if it had been permitted to proceed, was halted by Charles Martel. Medieval Europe and the Islamic world were both significantly impacted by the Battle of Tours' aftermath. The suppression of the spread of Islam in Western Europe was one of the most direct effects. Charles Martel's reputation was further cemented during the Battle of Tours. He was dubbed Martel, which translates to the Hammer, for his resolute leadership in combat. In addition to protecting his realm from possible Islamic conquest, Martel's military prowess and strategic genius set the stage for the Carolingian dynasty's ascent to power. Later, Chahram Maji, the grandson of Charles Mart, would rise to prominence as one of Europe's most powerful monarchs. The Islamic world also suffered long-term effects from the triumph at Tours. The defeat caused internal strife within the Islamic Empire, in addition to stopping the Umayyad Caliphate's westward expansion. The Yads experienced internal conflict, and the Abid Caliphate's subsequent ascent signaled a change in the balance of power in the Islamic world. This battle's effects were felt throughout history, permanently altering the development of Western civilization. Thank you so much for staying with us through the end. If you love learning about fascinating historical stories and have a keen interest in history, don't forget to subscribe. Because there is so much more to learn, we are here to give you engaging, educational, and fascinating historical content. Stay tuned for more fascinating historical tales.